It started on a quiet Monday morning, the kind where the lake was so still you could see the pine trees reflected, perfectly in the water. My cabin, a small wooden structure my grandfather built in the 70s, sat right at the edge of Lake Huron Valley, a peaceful retreat far from city noise. I had been living there full-time for almost 3 years, enjoying the solitude and the view that felt like a personal painting. That morning, as I walked out with my coffee mug, something caught my eye on the front door, a bright orange notice flapping in the wind. It was from the Huron Valley Homeowners Association. The words "Notice of Demolition" made my heart skip. According to the letter, my cabin was illegally constructed within HOA jurisdiction and had to be removed within 30 days or face forced demolition. I couldn't believe it. My family had owned this property long before the HOA even existed. I drove straight to the HOA office, which looked more like a fancy lodge than a community center. Inside, a stern woman named Karen Davenport. The HOA president greeted me with a smirk. "Oh, you must be Mr. Collins. Yes, we've been meaning to talk about your shack," she said, emphasizing the last word like it was dirt. I tried to stay calm. "My grandfather bought this land in 1973. It's private property. The HOA has no jurisdiction here." Karen smiled, almost enjoying my frustration. Actually, the lake and all adjacent lands were annexed under community jurisdiction 5 years ago. "Your cabin violates our environmental preservation codes." I felt a wave of anger. "You can't just annex privately owned land." She folded her arms. "You can file an appeal, but good luck with that. The demolition order stands." I left the office fuming. That night, I pulled out every old document my grandfather left behind: deeds, surveys, handwritten notes. Most were faded and brittle, but one caught my eye, a notarized land patent from the state archives, dated 1972. It declared ownership not just of the shoreline, but of the lakebed beneath the entire lake. If this document was still legally binding, then technically, the HOA's entire community lake sat on my property. I stared at the paper in disbelief, a mix of confusion and excitement stirring inside me. Maybe my grandfather knew something no one else did. Maybe the HOA just picked a fight they couldn't win. The next morning, I drove straight to the county land records office with my grandfather's old land patent in hand. The clerk, a middle-aged man with half-moon glasses, squinted at the document for a long time. Then he looked up and asked, "Where did you get this?" "It was my grandfather's," I said. "He built our cabin in 1973. The HOA's trying to demolish it, claiming the land is under their jurisdiction." He adjusted his glasses again. "Well, Mr. Collins, this isn't just any deed. This is a federal land patent, a rare kind of document that predates most modern HOA claims. If this is authentic, you don't just own your cabin, you own the entire lakebed beneath Huron Valley." I blinked. "The entire lake?" He nodded slowly. "Technically, yes. The HOA may have built docks, roads, even homes around it, but they'd be sitting on top of your property. This could be very interesting." By noon, the news had spread like wildfire. The HOA board called for an emergency meeting. When I showed up, Karen and the other board members were already there, faces tight, whispers flying. Karen slammed her hand on the table. "You think you can waltz in here, waving some old piece of paper and tell us you own our lake?" I stayed calm. "It's not just a piece of paper. It's a federal record, signed and sealed by the Department of the Interior. I confirmed it at the county office this morning." Her face paled. "That's impossible." "The HOA's jurisdiction covers land purchase from the developer," I interrupted. "My grandfather never sold. The lake was formed after his purchase, which means your HOA lake technically rests on my property." A murmur rippled through the room. Some members looked uneasy, others downright panicked. One man whispered, "Does this mean we've been paying dues for property we don't even own?" Karen glared at him. "Quiet! This doesn't change anything. We'll contest it." But I could see doubt in her eyes. She knew the law wasn't on her side this time. That evening, I stood on my dock, watching the sunset dance over the rippling water. The lake that had always felt like home now looked different, like a secret treasure my grandfather had quietly left behind. But something told me the HOA wouldn't go down quietly. Karen wasn't the type to admit defeat. And sure enough, as the last bit of sunlight disappeared, I saw a pair of car headlights pause outside my driveway. then slowly pull in. Someone wasn't done fighting. The next morning, I woke to the sound of engines. I stepped outside to find 3 construction trucks parked near my cabin, and a group of men unloading demolition tools. My stomach dropped. Karen stood in front of them in her pristine white blazer, sunglasses glinting in the sunlight. "You had your warning, Mr. Collins," she said coldly. "We're proceeding with the demolition." I walked straight up to her, holding the land patent in my hand. "You're trespassing," I said. "And if you take one more step, I'll have the sheriff here before your trucks even start their engines." She crossed her arms. "You think a piece of paper scares me? The HOA has the county's support." Just then, a white SUV pulled up, Sheriff Daniels, a no-nonsense man who'd lived in the area his whole life, stepped out. "What's going on here?" he asked. Karen flashed him a confident smile. "We have authorization to remove this illegal structure." "Not anymore," I interrupted, handing him the document. "This is a federal land patent, confirmed by the county office. The HOA's jurisdiction doesn't apply here." Daniels skimmed the papers, frowning. Then he looked at Karen. "He's right. Until a court says otherwise, you're on private land. Back your men off." Karen's expression hardened. "This isn't over," she hissed. The trucks slowly turned around, leaving tire marks in the gravel. I could feel her glare burning into my back as they left. But later that night, the real retaliation began. Around midnight, I woke to loud splashes outside. When I stepped onto the dock with my flashlight, I found oil floating on the water, slick and rainbow-colored under the beam. My boat's engine had been slashed open. Someone had sabotaged it, and I didn't need to guess who. The next day, I called the environmental inspector, reporting the contamination. By evening, Karen showed up again, this time furious. "You called the county on us?" she yelled. "You poisoned my lake!" I shouted back. She froze. "Your lake?" I stepped closer. "Yes, my lake. The entire bed, Karen, which means that oil spill. It's on your HOA's record, not mine. The county will fine you for environmental damage." For the first time, she looked shaken. She turned and stormed off without another word. That night, as I sat by the flickering fireplace, I couldn't help but wonder what my grandfather would have said. Maybe he'd laugh, maybe he'd say, "The lake always protects its own." But deep down I knew Karen wasn't done yet. People like her never quit until they're humiliated publicly, and the perfect storm was coming. Over the next few days, the tension around the lake grew thick enough to choke on, HO members whispered when I passed. Their once friendly smiles replaced by nervous glances. Word had spread. The man in the cabin owned the lake itself. Karen, however, was determined to reclaim her power. She called for an emergency HOA meeting at the community lodge, this time inviting local news reporters. I decided to show up. If she wanted a public battle, I'd give her one. When I entered the hall, cameras were already rolling. Karen stood at the podium, looking every bit the righteous leader. "Today," she began, her voice echoing, "we address a dangerous claim made by a resident who insists he owns our beloved community lake. These accusations are false, misleading, and, frankly, delusional." She gestured toward me. "Mr. Collins here believes his family somehow owns the lake, beneath all our properties. Ridiculous, right?" I stepped forward, holding up a folder. "Ridiculous? Then you won't mind if I show everyone this." I handed the folder to the news reporter. Inside were copies of the federal land patent, county verification documents, and recent environmental violation reports filed against the HOA for the oil spill. The room went silent. Karen's confident smile faltered as the reporter read aloud. "According to these records, ownership of the lakebed legally belongs to Daniel Collins, inherited from his grandfather, under patent, 11472, issued by the U.S. Department of the Interior." Gasps filled the hall. One board member muttered, "My God, we've been building docks and walkways on land we don't even own." Karen tried to interrupt. This doesn't change the fact that..." But the reporter continued. "Furthermore, county inspectors have confirmed the HOA violated environmental safety laws by dumping motor oil into privately owned waters. Penalties may include fines exceeding $250,000. Cameras turned toward her, flashing rapidly. Her face drained of color. I looked her straight in the eyes. "You tried to demolish my cabin, Karen, but turns out you were standing on my land the whole time." The crowd erupted, some in disbelief, others in applause. HOA members began arguing among themselves. Karen stormed out of the room, clutching her papers, as reporters followed her out the door. Weeks later, she resigned from her position, and the HOA quietly dropped all actions against me. I still live in my lakeside cabin today. Every morning, I drink my coffee on the dock and watch the water ripple over land that's truly mine. Every inch of it. My grandfather once told me, the lake doesn't belong to people. People belong to the lake. Now I finally understood what he meant.